And the woman he's accused of killing, police say he's been violent with her in the past.
According to court records we obtained, Sanders recently threatened Pruitt with a gun. And 19 Investigates found he's also been accused of trying to kill her in the past. In March of 2020, Sanders was arrested for strangling and beating Pruitt, who was his girlfriend at the time. Pruitt told police Sanders also fired a gun at her head. He was charged with attempted murder, but pleaded guilty to lesser charges and was sentenced to 4 years in prison.
Briekethia Pruitt met Corey Sanders, a married man, on a dating site, and they started dating, but things quickly went bad for her when Corey shot her in the head and spent 4 years in prison. To the surprise of many, they got back together and continued their love affair shortly after he was released from custody. Unfortunately, she was not so lucky on the second try because her dead body was found in Corey's car with gunshot injuries. Corey was found the next day and arrested on suspicion of committing the murder. What happened during their second attempt at dating, and why did she let a multi-state offender with a significant felony history who tried to kill her previously back in her house and life? Hello and welcome to Twisted Crimes. Subscribe and hit the like button for more stories. This story takes us to Cleveland, Ohio. Cleveland is generally ranked as the city with the most crime in Ohio, with a population of 363,764 residents, with a violent crime rate of 16.2 per 1,000 residents and a property crime rate of 47.9 per 1,000 residents. Briekethia Pruitt, age 39, was from Lorain, Ohio but lived in Cleveland, Ohio. According to her social media, Briekethia was engaged to Corey Sanders, even though Corey was secretly married to someone else at the time. Corey Sanders was someone who seems like a gentleman, but he can't get to stay on the good side of the law. He is a multi-state offender with a significant felony history according to his records. His criminal history dates back to 2005 when he pleaded guilty to possession of a controlled substance in McLean County, Illinois. He also has convictions in Illinois for domestic battery and aggravated battery. In August 2008, Corey was arrested in Cleveland for brutally beating his handicapped mother at her apartment on Archwood Avenue. The woman told police her son punched her 20 times or more in her head and kicked her in the back about 5 to 10 times. Corey was indicted for felonious assault and robbery. He pleaded guilty to the charges and was sentenced to 2 years in prison at the Lorain Correctional Institution. While he was on post-release control following his release from prison in Ohio, Sanders was arrested in Flint, Michigan on July 2011 with a stolen loaded gun and drugs. He was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. According to court records, Corey was released from federal prison in February 2019 and placed on 36 months of supervised release. After his release, he met Briekethia Pruitt. They started dating and were living together. On March 14, 2020, Briekethia called the police to report Corey about domestic abuse. She told them he had assaulted her in her home. In her police report, she stated that, while backing away from him, she tripped over some items on the floor and fell onto the couch. She then reported that he got on top of her and began strangling her with his left hand while striking her with a closed fist with his right hand. She reported that she felt him hit her in the left side of her head with a gun. She moved her head and she heard the gun go off. Officers found a bullet hole in the couch, with Briekethia's hair in it, along with a spent .380 caliber casing and a Taurus Spectrum .380 with 1 round in the chamber on the floor next to the couch. Police confirmed they observed red marks and a small laceration on Briekethia's neck. Her upper lip had a deep laceration, and she had a small laceration on the left side of her head by her ear. Corey was indicted in April 2020 on 6 felony counts including attempted murder, felonious assault, aggravated burglar, and weapons under disability. In November 2021, Corey made a deal with prosecutors and pleaded guilty to weapons under disability and reduced charges of attempted felonious assault and burglary. The judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison with credit for the time he spent in jail following his arrest. Right after that, he got back with Briekethia and they continued from where they stopped before he went to jail. They went back to living together and loving each other again. Unfortunately, things will continue just like it was before he went to prison. This time Briekethia would lose her life. The couple were driving somewhere when they started arguing. Somewhere along the line Corey shot Briekethia, then he fled. Police said around 7:30 a.m. on February 9, 2025 they got a call for a person, slumped in a vehicle, in the 14700 block of Judson. When officers arrived, they found Briekethia Pruitt dead in a vehicle with a gunshot wound. Police arrested 41-year-old Corey Sanders the next day at a house in Garfield Heights.
Disturbing new information tonight on a local man who is accused of murder.
19 Investigates found the suspect has a significant criminal history spanning multiple states.
And the woman he's accused of killing, police say he's been violent with her in the past.
New at 6, here's investigator Mike Mason with what we've uncovered.
Can we find out why he was here?
Corey Sanders only said a few words in court Wednesday morning before his public defender invoked his right to silence. The 41-year-old is charged with aggravated murder, accused of fatally shooting a woman on Judson Avenue over the weekend. Police say 39-year-old Briekethia Pruitt was found dead inside of a car registered to Sanders, and they also have cell phone data connecting him to the crime scene. According to court records we obtained, Sanders recently threatened Pruitt with a gun, and 19 Investigates found he's also been accused of trying to kill her in the past. In March of 2020, Sanders was arrested for strangling and beating Pruitt, who was his girlfriend at the time. Pruitt told police Sanders also fired a gun at her head. He was charged with attempted murder but pleaded guilty to lesser charges and was sentenced to 4 years in prison. At the time the 2020 attack on Pruitt occurred, 19 Investigates found Sanders was on supervised release from federal prison, where he had spent nearly 8 years locked up on a weapons charge. In 2011, he was busted in Michigan with a stolen gun and 73 baggies of cocaine and heroin. Records show he took a plea deal in that case and wasn't charged for the drugs. In 2008, Sanders was sentenced to 2 years in prison for brutally beating his handicapped mother in her Cleveland home. We found he also has convictions in Illinois for domestic battery and drugs. In his previous cases, attorneys for Sanders said he has significant psychological and emotional issues as a result of his abusive childhood. According to court records, he was born to a drug-addicted mother who stabbed him 32 times when he was only 5. Sanders said he spent several years in foster care and residential juvenile facilities. While in prison, he said he began pursuing a bachelor's degree in social work because he wanted to help troubled teens that faced abuse and neglect. Sanders is currently at the Cuyahoga County Jail on a $2 million bond. He's set to go to court next week for his preliminary hearing.
Her daughter had a lot to say about what happened to her mom, so she went online to express how she felt. Her post reads, "Back in 2020, my mom Briekethia Pruitt met Corey Sanders on Tagged. They started talking and he went straight 3 weeks with me and my mom. The day that he shot my mom the first time, we were sleeping at a Days Inn in Elyria when we heard banging on the door. Corey then got up and opened the door. His wife was standing at the door yelling. Remind you, we had no clue he has a wife. My mom told him drop us off back at her house in Cleveland. That night he dropped us off and left to go to his son to get a gun from him because he was in some trouble. I was sleeping in my mom's house alone. My mom had gone out on a date. When she came back into her home, she found Corey in the back room of her house. They began to fight and I was woken up. I watched them fight through her house into the living room. Once we were all in the living room, he put the gun to the side of her head and pulled the trigger. She couldn't see because of how bad her face was beaten. But when she felt the cold of the gun in her face, she jerked her head. The bullet then hit her in the side of her face, shot her hair off, went through the couch into the stand behind the couch. She then fought Corey off of her out the door. At that point I stood in front of my mom and told him that the police were on the way. At that point he held the gun up to me and pulled the trigger. There was no more bullets in the gun. When he released it didn't go off. He went back into her house for his car keys, phone and wallet. But I already had his keys around my neck and his wallet and phone in my hoodie. When he couldn't find his things, he took off on foot. He was later found and arrested. He did 4 years in Ross Prison. While he was in prison, he was making death threats to my mom. He was released October 11, 2023. By October 2024, they were back in a relationship. I do not know why she went back to him or what her intentions were. But in the end he shot my mom and left her in a car to die alone. He was found the next day and will be facing trial. When a person really shows you who they are, believe it. Don't look over the red flags. Save yourself while you can. I don't wish this on anyone. My mom's not here to tell her story, so I will. Sanders is charged with aggravated murder and is currently sitting in jail. Some people blame her for taking him back into her life, but at this point we do not have to blame but prayer for her family. We do hope she gets the justice she fully deserves. Our sincere condolences to the friends and families of Briekethia Pruitt. May her soul continue to rest in peace. Please stay safe out there, and we shall see you guys in the next video.